Welcome to the Steering Change Podcast, navigating through the commercial transportation industry in Alberta and beyond, powered by the Alberta Motor Transport Association. Here's your host, Kelsey Hipkin.
Hello, listeners of Steering Change. We are switching things up a bit today. I'm going to have you picture a time machine. Maybe it's the TARDIS. Now that you have that conjured in your mind, I am pleased to bring a voice from the past to quarterback today's episode. You are about to hear from the one and only Josh Hannaberry. Josh is joined by Ganesh Srinivasan and Vetaley Marivtsan of Cummins and Cody Brookwell of Clean Energy Fuels, speaking to the opportunity that commercial transportation has to integrate CNG, or compressed natural gas, into their on-road operations, what carriers are doing already, the benefits, and the challenges that have been overcome and may still exist. We'll wrap all of this into how AMTA is working in collaboration with today's guests and more, looking to the future of industry. Take it away, Josh.
Hey, friends. Welcome to the Steering Change Podcast. My name is Josh Hannaberry, Senior Advisor of Strategic Partnerships. And I'm really excited for our discussion today with three incredible leaders on a critical topic impacting on-road transportation. So we have Ganesh, we have Vetaley, and we have Cody. And just want to welcome you to the podcast.
Hey, Josh.
Hey, Josh, how are you?
Oh, great.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. I won't lie, this is a milestone for myself. I have a lot of respect for the three gentlemen in this interview today and the work that we've done leading up to this conversation and the future that we're going to talk about. It's really exciting, and it's something that I think our industry is super proud of. So it's really good to have everyone here today. So to start us off, let's just do some quick introductions. So Vetaley, I'm looking at you, so quick introduction.
I'm Vetaley Marivtsan. I'm a technical sport manager for Cummins Canada. I cover kind of anywhere from Winnipeg to the Vancouver Island, and I've been with Cummins for 21 years now.
It's awesome. It's great. All right, Ganesh.
Thanks, Josh. I'd like to start by thanking AMTA to have us on this podcast and discuss on an exciting topic, which is alternate technology and specifically natural gas. So my name is Ganesh, and I've been with Cummins now for 11 years. And in my current role, I'm the fleet account executive supporting fleets navigate the changing powertrain landscape and technology landscape across Western Canada.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's great to have you guys here. And Cody, my friend.
Yeah, good morning, Josh. And to echo Ganesh's point, thanks for having us on and providing a platform to amplify the message that we have today. For sure, very excited to be here. So Cody Brookwell, I'm the Director of Business Development and Sales for Clean Energy, and I lead the growth of our business across Canada.
It's amazing. So the point I made initially that will really be echoed through this conversation is three incredible leaders in this space in our industry. So this is really, it's going to be an amazing conversation. So Vetaley, let's hop over to you first. Can you provide our listeners with an overview of the current state of compressed natural gas, so CNG, in the commercial transportation industry?
So Josh, the commercial transportation sector is seeing steady, meaningful growth in CNG adoption, driven by infrastructure expansion, some regulatory pressure, and a rapid shift toward lower carbon operations.
It's awesome. And Ganesh, so just to kind of add to the discussion, when you're chatting with carriers of obviously all shapes of sizes and various sectors, have you seen, or what have you seen in these discussions for carriers to decide that, yes, I want to trial this technology and ultimately invest and adopt CNG into their fleets?
That's a great question, Josh, because, when we talk to a fleet or a fleet starts talking about natural gas technology, the first thing we ask them is the why, right? So when we think about the why, the fleets generally look at things like their own sustainability efforts or an ask from a shipper that they want to reduce their carbon footprint and as an extension need the fleet to look at alternate technologies. And then the other big aspect is the economics aspect of things. Right? Because when you look at alternate technology, while it is important to reduce the carbon footprint, there's an economics piece as well. And once fleets realize that a technology like natural gas is able to help them save money, so these three things seem to be the biggest motivating factors for the fleets to look at the technology actively and do a deep dive and then progress towards adoption.
I think that's amazing. I know we're going to dive into the economics here shortly. Before we, I guess, pivot to Cody quickly, you mentioned the customer, the shipper. So is that a common conversation then? Is the shippers are starting to, I guess, encourage more just carriers being thoughtful? I know I want to see true investment or kind of, how is that conversation going?
It's a mixed bag, if I'm being completely honest. So there are some shippers who really do not talk about it, but there are some shippers who actively talk about it. It's because they want their companies hauling freight for them to be more socially responsible and environmentally friendly. So there's an ask from certain shippers as to, hey, this is the product mix that we want. So they don't talk about a specific technology. But then it comes back to whether what is the price that is being offered by that shipper to the fleet as well, right? And that sort of ties back into the economics piece is, yes, you're expected to reduce the carbon footprint, but you got to do it at the same price, if not lower. And then that's where the question about balancing the environmental efforts to the dollar spent by a fleet comes into picture. But your question, if all the shippers are asking for it, probably not, but definitely a lot of shippers are asking for it. And fleets who are actually putting their efforts into these alternate technologies are beginning to gain some advantage with certain shippers out there for sure.
For sure. Yeah, no, I do. I applaud the shippers that are very forward thinking, but also the carriers that are truly investing and adopting. I know that we're going to share a lot, throughout this conversation. But I think that really sets the stage of just, is there pressure? Is there opportunity? Is there forward thinking? And yeah, I think it's an exciting time for our industry for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Cody, we've all heard the expression, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? And it's often referenced when new technologies are trying to penetrate market share. So can you share what this analogy means with respect to the commercialization of CNG in the transportation industry, as well as what's Clean Energy Fuels doing to support the commercial integration?
Yeah, and this is a good point. And I think the chicken and the egg paradox is technology agnostic. And ultimately, when we talk about the alternative technology, alternative fuel space, you're ultimately going to get to a point where somebody has to make the investment. And what I have found and what I think everybody is going to have to get to at some point is the infrastructure has to come first. That is the enabling investment. That is the enabling piece and a key barrier to adoption that opens the door to start to have meaningful conversations with the industry. Otherwise, you're stuck in this, I'll go if you go, no, you go first or I'll go first. And it's never going to work. So, I'm proud to work for a company that has been at the forefront of the gaseous fuel infrastructure space for just about 30 years now. And we have always been a leader in delivering infrastructure to kickstart the market. Primarily in the U.S., we're a U.S.-based company that operates 600 stations, both private and public. And Canada now represents a great opportunity for growth. And what makes the opportunity in Alberta and more broadly Western Canada very special is you have not just clean energy, but our partner Tourmaline Oil willing to put capital at risk because of the belief we have in the underlying value proposition in natural gas as a decarbonizing tool, but also an economic win for the industry. And that is what is really having a profound effect on creating the momentum, creating the awareness, and allowing the technology, which in this case, the Cummins X15N, which also is a key barrier to adoption that's being removed, be deployed onto the road, and the validation and the success to take place for others in the industry to get into something new, but at a lot lower risk. So commercial grade infrastructure, not just in one location, but a network that really targets the high volume corridors that unlock the market segments that make the most sense from the economic win perspective.
I think that's incredible insight, Cody. And I've often expressed my appreciation for partially your expertise, but more so your ability to clearly articulate the opportunity. So my background, a lot of it is with major fleets. And the chicken and the egg came up with many types of technologies. And I want to follow up with a question, but I'm trying to make a point is the relief that a decision maker has when one of the largest hurdles isn't there, I think is the biggest part of this opportunity when we're talking about infrastructure. it is there, and you have a strong partnership, and you have the ability to invest in the future. So when you're talking to fleets and you let them know infrastructure is here and we're going to continue to invest into infrastructure, what's kind of their expression?
Yeah, and I think it's aligned with the sentiment of your comment. I mean, there's certainly relief there because it checks a very critical box, and it allows us to progress the conversation to the natural next step, which is to talk about the technology, which is to have an opportunity to engage the OEM community, to bring their expertise in, to really sit down and walk through every aspect of the technology and the investment. It also allows us to point to something tangible with respect to the fuel and the design and our approach on infrastructure to replicate diesel, but to also point to the underlying costs and provide certainty there. Because at the end of the day, the fleet can be comfortable with the technology. They could be comfortable that the truck could go do the work that they needed to do, but they need to have confidence that that infrastructure is there, that it will reliably fill that truck, and that they can get the payback on that incremental investment.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I think confidence is a key takeaway for our listeners too, is I think a lot of those that are listening are interested in this topic. And when you have the experts at the table speaking confidently about what's being done, I do think that's an amazing statement. So I appreciate that. And that's a really good segue to Vetaley, who's going to talk a little bit more about the X15N. So how important are these infrastructure investments for Cummins and the success of the X15N engine?
Well, and that's exactly why infrastructure development is absolutely critical for Cummins and the success of the X15N. The X15N brings true heavy-duty capability to the natural gas space, but its success depends on fleets being confident that they can fuel consistently across their routes. Today, we're seeing that confidence grow because the infrastructure is finally catching up. This is why partnerships with companies like Clean Energy Fuels are so important to Cummins. While we engineer the X15N to deliver diesel-like performance, reliability, and range, Clean Energy is investing in station builds, upgrades, and RNG supply chains. Our distributor and dealer networks are investing in training and CNG compliant facilities. Together, that removes the guesswork for fleets. They no longer have to wonder, will I be able to fuel? Instead, they can focus on total ownership and emission reduction, which is exactly where the X15N shines.
You said a couple of things there that I think we should lean into a little bit more. So knowing we're in Western Canada, this conversation's happening technically just outside of Calgary, Alberta. How, from a range perspective, when you're chatting just collectively or talking collectively amongst the key stakeholders and partners, how important is range when they're talking with fleets?
Well, especially with the infrastructure just coming on board, we're catching up. With fleets, it's absolutely critical. If they can't fuel, they can't, run a route. But we see fleets right now that are running from Edmonton to Fort Mac on that same run in a single day on a single fuel tank. So from that point of view, those ranges are absolutely there now.
No, I think that's amazing. And yeah, for those listening that possibly don't know where Edmonton to Fort McMurray is, definitely go on Google Maps and you'll see it's not a short journey. It's actually a fascinating commute. I've taken it many times just from what you see on our highways. And I often speak anytime I go from Calgary to Edmonton, kind of past Red Deer, when you go north, you start seeing very different equipment on the highways, very different types of loads. And it is extreme what you see when you're going from Edmonton to Fort McMurray. So if you can imagine the types of freight that's getting hauled up there, this is critical, having the range, having the power. You said diesel-like performance. So I think that's a huge compliment to just the technology and the investment, but also to Cummins. I think the fact that you truly know your customer base, you truly know what our industry does, I think that speaks volumes because we have to be able to do that, especially here. And then the moment you go a little bit west and you're in the Rockies and you're in the mountains, yeah, very, very critical that your professional drivers have confidence that they can haul the freight that they're required to haul. So I applaud that. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. So Ganesh, back to you, my friend. So from a fleet's perspective, how important is it for them to know the technology is here and that it can be utilized within their operations today?
Josh, I would probably point back to a word that you mentioned earlier, which is building confidence, right? So when you think about fleets becoming confident about this technology which is here now and ready to go, I think first it starts with awareness, because our friend Cody here mentioned about change is not easy, and there's a lot of people to support the fleets in this transition to ensure that every aspect of this transition is taken care for them, right? So one of the things with the X15N and the natural gas technology is it's the least disruptive alternate technology currently available for a fleet in this decarbonization journey. And the reason is natural gas technology, and specifically Cummins, has built engines for the last 40 plus years. So, we have seen this technology do its thing in refuse and other spaces. And with the launch of the 15N, now it expands that multiple different applications that you just pointed out just by traveling 3 hours from Calgary to Edmonton, right? So this opens the ability for the fleet to go there, but with a familiar internal combustion technology that everyone's is so used to and operating, which makes it least disruptive. So in addition to that, infrastructure developments by fuel providers like Clean Energy, and also the OEM partners who are investing in key servicing infrastructure. But more so, we have a few fleets who are innovators and really early adopters of this technology. As they showcase that it works, and that is going to give confidence even more to other fleets who are probably waiting in the wings just to see how this technology shapes up. Because any new technology, any new change is always uncomfortable. But when it is proven and there are certain fleets who show that it works with all the infrastructure and the support system getting matured over a period of time, I think that's going to really build confidence in the minds of other fleets and driving further adoption of the technology.
No, I agree. And I love that everyone's using the word confidence, because I think that's a core message from this conversation so far is you can be confident in your infrastructure partners. You can definitely be confident with your engine technologies and your engine OEMs, as well as our partners. So we're gonna give some love to our dealership network that in a little bit that we'll get to. But I just think that's a core message that we need to just continue to reiterate, especially those that are listening. Share that with others. Be confident in what we're doing and what's being done. So I think that's really important. So Ganesh, I'm going to stick with you for a second. So when you're engaged with fleets, what feedback are their professional drivers sharing who are utilizing the technology in the commercial vehicle? And have they noticed much of a difference in the performance of the commercial vehicle, as well as its ability to haul loads on our highways, especially across Western Canada?
And now we are talking about one of the important stakeholders in this journey, Josh, the driver, right? So when you think about who are our customers? Yes, the trucking companies and the fleets are the customers who haul the freight for their end customers, but an important stakeholder is the driver in this whole journey. And when we think about feedback that we have received from drivers, and specifically the X15N, which is a purpose-built engine to give diesel-like drivability and performance, clubbed with Cody mentioning earlier about their fueling infrastructure at Clean Energy, sort of mirroring a diesel-like fueling experience, we have heard really good feedback from drivers that, hey, there's really nothing different because it feels like diesel, drives like diesel. I'm able to do the same work as that of a diesel, right? And but the additional advantage with the natural gas is a lot quieter than a diesel truck. So some of the drivers absolutely, enjoyed that aspect of transitioning from a diesel truck to a natural gas truck. But we should also be cognizant that there are differences between a diesel powertrain or a diesel truck and a natural gas truck. And, one of the biggest things is the fuel system. And as part of the pre-trip, there are certain things that they need to take care of. And they also need to learn over a period of time how the fueling and how much of fuel is required to be able to complete the trip, taking into account all the other factors of duty cycle for their trip. So from that particular standpoint, I guess there's a little bit of learning there. But again, coming back to that ecosystem of support that is there, we have been trying to work with the fleet to bring in the driver at the right time to ensure that they are aware of all the inputs needed for them to be comfortable driving the truck and be successful with the truck itself at the end of the day.
No, I really honor that. So I'm a former professional driver, and I remember the first time I was asked to test something. We wanted to make a technology change. And to all of our professional drivers out there, huge shout out to you and the expertise that you bring to this industry. So when a carrier asks a professional driver, I trust you, I want to equip you with something that can revolutionize our business, and the professional driver owns that, nothing better. And I literally get shivers just thinking about that because I still remember that conversation. And we're very fortunate at AMTA to spend a lot of time with professional drivers that are the elite of the elites. And we actually, Cody, at your grand opening, we got to engage with some of the professional drivers that were on site that were filling, and just seeing the pride and seeing that this is why I do what I do. It's a gift, and they are a key partner in this conversation. You're absolutely right, because if they were very against it, well, they're going to now speak for the masses. But when they're very for it, I just think it's a great opportunity for the fleet to really consider. That's a direct impact to safety as well. So if you're talking pre-trip inspections, hours of service, but noise, and the impact that noise has with fatigue. And we have a quick shout out to Dave Elniski on our team, who's very, very, very brilliant when it comes to safety management. But when you think about the professional driver that has to haul from, say, Edmonton to Fort McMurray, and they're exhausted because of the noise, and maybe they're no longer as tired because of there's less noise, I just think that's a huge win for industry as a whole. Which, again, those are some really cool things that we can really celebrate throughout this journey. So I appreciate you recognizing that too, because, to the good fleets out there that really recognize the professionalism that drivers have, I'm a huge advocate for it. So I really appreciate that.
Josh, I would like to build on one more keyword that you mentioned there, was safety, right? So, and I think we also would like to appreciate AMTA on taking certain efforts related to safety, which is ensuring that our first responders are ready and geared if and when needed, right? So, we got a chance to collaborate with AMTA, and AMTA led the charge in hosting 2 first responder training on this, right? So when you know that your first responders are trained and know what to do in case of an emergency, that again builds confidence to the fleet as well as the driver, because, it's an unlikely scenario, but you always have to be prepared for that unlikely scenario. So, when you think about the safety aspect of it, I think that's a key piece. And I would like to commend AMTA again for taking the charge and getting that base covered as well, which ties back to the confidence topic that we've been speaking about on this podcast so far. So I guess that's an important piece to it as well.
Agreed it is. Yeah, huge shout out to our industry advancement team led by Terry Johnson, and just the relationships that have been built with, if it's direct law enforcement, if it's first responders from the fire departments, and just a huge shout out to our friends in enforcement and fire department and paramedics, because that is a critical part, and they're a key partner in this conversation too. And it's nice to hear, again, the great relationships that have been developed, the training that's taking place to just continue to feed the confidence into this technology, and that it's here for our industry. So Cody, to you now. So what are you hearing with respect to fueling the commercial vehicle and, say, going from diesel to CNG? And is there much of a difference for what professional drivers expect while at the pump, or when it comes to time and it takes to fuel?
Yep, good question. So it's really a continuation to the theme that we're talking about. Everything we do with respect to design is through the lens of the driver. The fleet is the partner, the customer is the driver, and we recognize that without that solid experience there, the feedback going into the decision maker within that organization is absolutely critical to any further investment. So everything we do is to make sure it is intuitive, very simple to use, very simple to access, and they have basic amenities on site like washrooms and even, things like wash wands to clean out your window and not have to create an extra stop or any inconvenience for that driver. So again, we take pride in making sure that the infrastructure at the end of the day isn't the excuse or the weak link in the chain. In terms of the feedback, we've obviously been very engaged with the partners that we've had to date and have sought out the feedback from the driver. And it's, fortunately mirrored our intent. So simple to use, very fast fueling, 6 to 10 minutes is all it takes to fill one of these trucks, and odorless. And, I think unless you're a professional driver, maybe this wouldn't resonate with you, but the lingering smell of diesel for some has an impact. And with natural gas, it's odorless. It doesn't stick on your clothes. It doesn't stick on your hands. And at the end of the day, it's a small thing, but I think the small wins on the driver's side definitely add up. You're looking to improve their quality of life, improve their working environment. Natural gas definitely has some inherent advantages on that front.
Man, it's so incredible. So you are 1,000% right. So again, I'll speak a little bit about my experience. I've had diesel on my gloves. They're my favorite gloves. But that smell over time gives you the worst headache, respectfully. And that is a safety hazard. So again, the thought outness, the safe place to go to the bathroom is a critical component, especially as our industry continues to put a lot of effort in, just if it's more women in the industry, which is critical, or if it's just being safe, being able to use the facilities because that's the right thing to do. Like, I just think all of the thought outness is nice. And I liked how you tied that to, it's the lens of the driver and the feedback to the decision maker, and that they're part of that conversation. And I think that's brilliant, because when you don't think about your end user like that, that could be mission failure. So I really applaud that. And again, I really value the confidence that you speak, because professional drivers are critical and they're the key people in this journey that make it happen. So yeah, I really appreciate that, Cody.
Yeah.
And Josh, I would like to build on one thing that Cody mentioned while tying it back to driver feedback, which you have heard, is when it comes to fueling and taking into account hours of service, which is a big topic of conversation with the trucking fleets right now. They don't need to bobtail into a fuel station, just like how they would do it with a diesel truck. They could just have their trailers on, even with LCV configurations, pull right to the pump, fuel, don't need any additional training or anything specific to be able to do the fueling process. And that makes them more comfortable, because they can now focus on getting the load to where it is supposed to reach versus worrying about something which is completely different. So that's a feedback we have heard from the drivers as well, which sort of is the confidence that is being given to them based on the infrastructure readiness like a company like Clean Energy has been investing in.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, and I think 6 to 10 minutes is so thought out. And I completely agree with you, Ganesh. I think that's a phenomenal point. So really well done. All right, so before we pivot our conversation more about the economics now, I did want to give a huge shout out to everyone who is involved at the CNG Technology Showcase and Ride-Along event back in October 2025. So this was an incredible day, showcasing the key technology partners, dealers, OEMs, and carriers who have been heavily invested in CNG technology in Canada. So there are a couple of key interviews we were able to capture actually on site, live on location, speaking to the technology as well as to the opportunity that CNG has that we would like to share.
Well, one of the things about natural gas that Cummins really is trying to do is reduce the barriers to entry for customers. And one of the ways that you can do that is by trying to align your maintenance practices with your diesel equivalent that you're already operating. So the X15N natural gas engine actually aligns quite similarly with the diesel engine when it comes to things like oil change intervals and fluid haul and everything like that. Where you can see some differences is obviously a natural gas engine is a spark ignited engine. So you will have things like spark plugs that need to be changed. But again, trying to reduce total cost of ownership, barriers, we wanted to make sure that those intervals are done and aligned really with your oil changes. So you're not having extra downtime trying to maintain your product. On the flip side, the natural gas engine has a three-way catalyst. You no longer have the after-treatment system with DPFs and needing to use DEF. So you're saving on maintenance side there as well, where you're not having to have the cleaning of the after-treatment. So those would probably be two of the biggest differences maintenance-wise between diesel and natural gas.
Edmonton Kenworth has done substantial investment, probably over $1 million in the CNG, LNG, alternative fuel technology. We are one of the only facilities that I know of, probably in Western Canada for sure, where we can bring a fully fueled system into our shop. It's got sensors, ventilation, it monitors the system if there's a gas leak. We recently became the authorized facility to install the Hexagon Agility tank system. We are the only facility in North America that has that certification with them, so we can install them, repair them, do warranty repairs on the system. I think our questions we're getting from our customers is what's the initial cost of the vehicle, where are we going to get our fuel from, and what is the return on the investment if we take this technology on?
One of the biggest things is to make sure you have key stakeholders around you and involved in the planning process. Make sure you have your OEM, your fueling provider, and Cummins on your side.
About a year and a half ago, we developed or put in a whole CNG hydrogen bay on our Southside location on Roper Road. That's up and running, so we're working now with companies and ordering CNG stuff in for them. The build process, surprisingly, is very much the same. You just got to work with the bodybuilder and the customer just to identify what they're doing with it, and you need a little bit more frame space for the natural gas tanks, but other than that, it's pretty much the same process, surprisingly.
So at Hexagon Agility, we manufacture natural gas fuel systems for fleet vehicles. But in the natural gas fuel system industry, there have been great advancements that have been made over the last few years in particular. A lot of weight has come out of the systems. So the range that has come out of these systems is just fantastic. Very, very similar now and comparable to diesel. And it's very versatile. There's side mount tanks and there's back of cab tanks. And so you can either do one or the other, or you can do both. So for example, if you do a side mount tank, you can get as little as 30 diesel gallon equivalents up to 60 diesel gallon equivalents. You put it on one side or both sides. And then with a back of cab system, you can do 60 gallons, and then there's different variations all up to 175 diesel gallons. So there's different ranges within all that. And then let's say you wanted a really long range. If you combine both back of cab systems and rail mounted systems, you can go up to 2,000 kilometers. So the range is definitely there, and that is something we've answered completely in the industry.
Primarily what we have to understand is the two operating systems operate just slightly differently from a spark-fired engine versus compression engine. The gas engine will react just a touch slower in regards to making the transmission shift based on driver input and available load. The diesel is typically higher horsepower, so we tend to get moving a little bit quicker. So managing drivers' expectations and just understanding that the system operates just at a different rate than what we're used to.
So natural gas engines are not new to Cummins or Western Canadian market. We've been building natural gas engines for the last 30 years. So a lot of garbage trucks that you see across our extreme cold conditions are our natural gas engines. The X15N is new to the on-highway market, so a lot of line haulers that are, grabbing it. Again, with proper maintenance, just follow the OEM guidelines and just, reach out to OEMs and just use our support. I think, shouldn't be any issues with that. And then, again, like I said, we've been running these units for quite a while in our territories, so just follow the maintenance. Proper take care of the the equipment and the units. And the biggest benefit that fleet's going to see, these trucks do not have DPFs or SCRs. So there's no winter DEF related issues that fleet's going to see. So that's once again is the biggest benefit that fleet's going to get. So I say there won't be any issues. And we just interviewed a whole bunch of drivers that have been driving our X15N. Comparing to what they noticed when it comes to diesel, not much. Once you're driving, you get the same feel as the diesel. So I think no issues when it comes to running in the extreme cold or hot conditions. So they're well tested.
Stella Peterbilt is a fully serviced facility with 4 explosion-proof bays in Edmonton, 1 in our Grand Prairie location, with a total of 10 technicians to support customers and competitors' trucks equipped with CNG technology. 5 of the technicians are mobile service. We are walking through our customers, looking at real-time costs, performance, and day-to-day operating of comparing diesel to CNG.
Kind of a few main things that we do. So we design and provide engineering services to upgrade existing maintenance facilities for vehicles that use natural gas or hydrogen for fuel. We also get involved in the design of the fueling stations for natural gas and hydrogen vehicles. And the other thing that we do is if companies want to bring their components, valves, fittings, things like that, especially related to the natural gas fueling industry, into Canada, then we help them to get the regulatory approvals that they need in order to be able to use them within Canada. There's always the possibility that while you're working on the vehicle that there could be a leak. And depending upon the kind of work that's being done, if it's doing oil changes and brake jobs and changing tires and things like that, there's just a minimum amount of equipment that's required in order to be able to bring that vehicle inside. If you're doing more extensive work where you're welding, grinding, working on the fuel system, working on the engine where there's a potential for there to be gas to be released, then there's more extensive work that needs to be done. But the basis of what needs to get done to the facilities is putting in gas detection so you know that there's gas there. And then in the event that there is gas, then exhaust fans in order to get that gas outside so it can't create problems. And typically these exhaust fans are not tied into the existing ventilation system, that they're separate. They're only used whenever gas is released within the building. So they can be smaller and more dedicated to that part. And so if there is a gas leak, then the exhaust fans kick in, blow it out, and it all happens automatically. So if you've got vehicles parked in overnight or over the weekend and there's a gas leak, then that gas will get evacuated out of the building.
That was excellent. Thank you again to everyone who was involved with making that day a huge success. And just, really grateful for the journey that we're on to really showcase the technology and just really express the confidence that our conversation has had so far and that event has showcased and just, kind of what's to come. So now we're going to dive more into the economic side associated with entering the CNG market and running a fleet with this technology. So Cody, can you walk us through some of the economics and some of the information a decision maker within a carrier would need to know to support their decision to integrate CNG into their fleet?
Yeah, for sure. And we've arrived at the topic that certainly matters most. I think at the end of the day, when you talk about alternative technology, there are different drivers to why that fleet is at the table and interested, whether it be the shipper, whether they like to operate on the leading edge, or there's other drivers there that are kind of pushing them in that direction. But at the end of the day, the balance sheet is the most important part of the business. And this is fundamentally why natural gas has an edge and has a future in the industry. So when we talk about the payback on investment, there are upside to the X15N with respect to maintenance. But the biggest driver for cost savings and return is in the fuel. So when you think about natural gas compared to diesel, the majority of savings is going to be found in the underlying commodity. So natural gas in Western Canada is abundant. In North America, quite frankly, it is abundant, but it is a resource that we're proud to produce here. And when you have an abundant supply of something that outstrips demand, you have downward pressure on pricing. And what we've seen with natural gas commodity is historically, on average, incredibly flat from a price perspective. So it's not only a lower cost commodity compared to Brent crude, it is more stable, and there is a competitive advantage there that I'll touch on. But when you look at the cost stack of natural gas versus diesel, if we take wholesale rack diesel, the commodity component of diesel fuel represents about 60% of the total cost stack. You then have 20% in refining, 7 to 8% in supplier margin cost. You have a retailer fee, you have taxes. There is a transportation component to diesel to take it to the end use market. And compare that to natural gas. there are fundamentals from a delivery side that are lower cost. And what we're talking about are the billions of dollars of pipeline infrastructure that connects natural gas from one corner of Canada to the other. That is a reliable, secure, low-cost mode of transporting to the end-use market. And you start to see the fundamentals there that have the cost of natural gas quite a bit lower. By comparison, natural gas, the commodity component, represents less than 10%. So when you think about variability and you think about the challenges in the industry today around cost escalation, fuel price volatility is a headache for the owner of that business. And what natural gas represents is not only a lower cost fuel, but a more stable fuel, a more predictable fuel. And what that means from a competitive advantage or a carrier's ability to go out and get new business is quite profound. And I think the environmental upside is just a bonus. Beyond commodity, because natural gas, the utility infrastructure system is mature and so robust, we historically know what the cost of transport is. So we're able to take the variability, which is a small part of the cost stack, and fix all other costs to get that molecule of energy to the end user. So you have a very, very predictable, low price fuel that will underpin the investment for the industry.
When I first met Cody and I heard him share a similar breakdown, it was literally the jaw hitting the floor moment. So I continue. I have a lot of respect for these three leaders for various reasons, and that's, Cody, for you, that's one of them. So anyone that's listening right now, that is very consumable information. It makes a lot of sense, and which I really value, because I think sometimes when you're talking economics, you're talking numbers, it makes you think of weird formulas and just things that don't really make sense to those that are in our industry. But that was really, really well said. And I think the predictability right now is critical. I know that we're still going through a tough time when it comes to freight. We're going through a tough time just dealing east to west, not even talking about north and south when we're talking about moving freight, that our industry needs predictability right now, and it needs confidence in exactly what you just described. So I really appreciate that. And I appreciate that you say that after we've already confirmed, infrastructure is already here. Technology is here. This is today. And it's a better business decision. I just think that's a really, really, really well said, and I appreciate that. So thank you.
Yeah, you bet. And then, maybe just to touch on the point where the volatility piece, diesel or crude oil is heavily influenced by geopolitical macro events. And I think it's topical today, given the conflict overseas with Iran. And you have now a bottleneck on supply, and you're starting to see a material shift in oil that will trickle down to the industry. So compare that to a domestically produced fuel. It is free from foreign influence. So again, the stability piece is important, because it's not just pointing at the economics of the truck and the fuel day one. Those economics need to be reliable throughout the life of that unit. And that's what we have. And I think the education is key. I think it's exciting to see. I think we have over a dozen fleets now in Alberta with this technology on the ground, and they're starting to realize this, right? So it's platforms like this that amplify the voice to get it out to those that, might be interested, but maybe they want to take a back seat until they see a lot of the risk flushed out. But to know this kind of stuff, I think you can start to pique a lot of interest, because there is a competitive advantage. At the end of the day, if you can widen your margin or lower your cost and represent a sustainable decarbonization pathway, that's one heck of a competitive advantage in the industry, right? And I think it's one of the last levers left that the fleet owner can pull to combat that escalation of cost that is outstripping revenue and causing a fundamental issue in the industry.
Completely agreed. And being in Alberta, knowing that is right here at home, I completely agree. Really well said. I appreciate that. So Vetaley, I want to ask you a similar question, but more so on the engine technology investment. So what are some of the key details decision makers would need to know to ultimately support their decision to integrate CNG engine technology into their fleets?
Okay. This flows a little bit with Cody was just saying, but when fleets consider CNG adoption, especially with the X15N, we help them focus on three big pillars: performance, economics, and then long-term sustainability. First, fleets want to know if a natural gas engine can truly replace diesel in a demanding duty cycle. With the new 15-liter X15N, yes, it can. Like Ganesh mentioned earlier, it brings diesel-like horsepower, torque, and durability to regional and long-haul applications. Second, fuel is the biggest operating expense for any fleet. CNG consistently offers a low-cost advantage over diesel. And third, sustainability is no longer optional. Customers and regulators expect it. At the end of the day, the message to decision makers is simple. You're not giving up performance, you're reducing operating cost, and you're dramatically improving your environmental footprint.
Again, there's the confidence piece. I really value that. And I agree, especially in Western Canada, when we're talking performance and we're talking if it's weather and the impacts of weather, we're still good to go. Doesn't matter if it's hot, doesn't matter if it's cold. If we're talking weights, again, with the value of the X15N, great, let's do this. And we're talking about being able to do a trip in the day and get to your next fueling infrastructure, great, let's do it. So I really like the partnership as well. I really value that three leaders, two great organizations are working closely together to really support our industry. I think that's really key. So let's talk about sustainability a little bit too. And I kind of want to open this to all three of us, or technically four, is from a sustainability piece, when is that brought up in the conversation? Is that tell me more about that? Or is that something that you kind of have to reinforce? Decarbonization is a good thing. It's happening. Where is that in the conversation?
It depends on the customer. There's a lot of people come to us exactly for that reason because, being green is a lot more important to them. Some customers, it's an added bonus. All of a sudden, they didn't realize it, but, the economical costs were fair, they were there to start with, and then all of a sudden, this is just an added bonus from that point of view. But anybody that actually realizes it and sees it, would like to adopt it after because it makes more sense for the business and makes more sense for the environment as well. The other thing I wanted to touch on is when you mentioned weather. Running in Western Canada, we definitely see 4 seasons here. We've run this technology and this environment for quite a few years now, and there's no issues. Winter, it runs just as well as diesel. In some cases, probably even a little better. So from that point of view, it's sustainable and it works for us.
I think that's incredible. And indicating weather is huge because that has an impact on every part of the business. If I'm waiting for a part, sorry, we've had a snowstorm, it's not coming, or so many variables. So no, I really appreciate that. Thank you.
And unfortunately, in environment here, nobody uses weather as an excuse. It's just it's part of your daily work.
That's right.
-30 is acceptable to everybody.
That's right. Yeah.
From my perspective, I've seen the winds of sustainability change a little bit, and I think one of the big triggering events was the Trump administration in the U.S. and his position on a lot of the initiatives within the industry. So what I found in even the last 5 years is sustainability was more of a forefront. And it depends on the organization, like Vetaley was saying, certainly some of the larger carriers that have shareholders or they have shippers that they have shareholders demanding something. That tends to be more at the forefront. And if we talk about confidence, and I think we need a ticker counter on the amount of times confidence is mentioned in this podcast, being able to talk to and point to how emissions and how environmental performance is measured within Canada at the federal level is very, very important, because it's one thing to say, well, we think it's this. It's another thing to say, here's the formula, and here is the carbon intensity of natural gas at a molecular level versus diesel. And being able to certify that and stand behind that to be able to stand up to anybody poking holes in that is very, very important. So depending on who we talk to, certainly we position it differently, but I would say in the last year or so, I've kind of gotten the sense that it's a show me your best price environment again. And the environmental piece becomes a footnote in our conversation. And the economics is at the forefront because these are business owners at the end of the day that are looking for ways to make more money. But if they could wave the green flag, fantastic. So I think it changes, but I don't think sustainability is going to go away. And I think any good steward of the environment, any good organization, especially in trucking, I think there's the continuous improvement mindset. And they know that they have to do more and do their part on sustainability. And you see a lot of incredible carriers, like the branding on the side of their truck, a greener tomorrow, or whatever the case may be. They're already doing it. So to offer a solution that's viable, like viability, that's the most important piece that really we're talking about at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree. I like that word too. We're going to start doing a new counter for viability. But no, I think continuous improvement is key. And that's something that AMTA does a really good job, I feel, fostering, is where are we today and where can we be tomorrow? And how do we work together with key partners like Cummins and like Clean Energy to get there? And then, of course, our carriers and their professional drivers and so on and so forth. So, Ganesh, I wanted to pass that question to you too. What are you seeing when you're talking with fleets?
So when we think about, I think Cody and Vetaley had some really good points. If I have to build one more aspect onto it right now is like Cody said, yes, economics is front and center of most of the conversations we are having, and sustainability is considered a given or a byproduct of that adoption. But one aspect is today it is working this way where economics is taking precedence over sustainability, and the narrative could completely change tomorrow. So where natural gas has the ability is to scale that sustainability piece while maintaining that affordability in a long run, right? So when you think about natural gas and the source where the fuel comes from, so pointing towards renewable natural gas is where you are able to accelerate the carbon footprint reduction. Again, tying back to Cody's point about the carbon intensity and factual carbon intensity, pointing out to accurate calculations on the actual reduction in carbon footprint. I guess while today economics is a key factor, and I'm sure it'll continue to be for the trucking industry, whereas sustainability, when it does come back as a primary topic as well in the future, there is an opportunity for fleets who are adopting natural gas today to accelerate that side of it as well through the means of renewable natural gas potentially in the future.
Yeah, and it's a proven pathway. I mean, Clean Energy headquartered in California, California being what California is. From our perspective, we have evolved over a decade to, I think, where we are today, economics, fossil natural gas, to almost exclusively talking about and investing in renewable natural gas. All of our customers in California are carbon negative. And it's interesting to think that because, we talk about continuous improvement, we talk about the path to net zero as if it's a far off destination. But the reality is it's happening today and it's proven. And some of the largest logistics companies in the world, like UPS and Amazon, have chosen this pathway because you can go further with renewable natural gas. And for your listeners who are wondering what that is, it is, organically derived. What Clean Energy invests in is dairy farm manure, and we capture the methane on site. We clean it to pipeline grade quality gas, and we inject it into the pipeline system and can nominate and sell those environmental attributes downstream to our customers. Our average portfolio of renewable natural gas is negative 320 CI. So diesel in Canada has a value assigned to it of a positive 93 CI, and CI being carbon intensity. Natural gas is assigned at a CI value of 72, so you're looking at about a 23% lower carbon intensity at a fuel level. And when you think about a drop in fuel at minus 320, you don't need a whole lot of that to move the needle in a material way. You can blend 5%, 10%, 20%, and achieve that target within your organization very quickly. But again, because it's a small blend, the average fuel price is still going to be competitive to diesel. And where I see it today in Western Canada, that fuel price will still be competitive and pay back the incremental cost. So this is a viable technology that can go the distance for the most aggressive carriers from sustainability. So you talk about bridge fuel or destination fuel. I firmly believe it's a destination fuel for that reason, because you can go to zero, you can go beyond zero, but it still makes sense on the balance sheet, which is, again, always going to be the most important from sustainability of a business, not just sustainability from the environment.
Very well said. I think that needs to be episode number 2. Just going to plant that right now, is more on the RNG side and the.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
For sure. No, it's fascinating, even for myself, being in environments where you have to learn from trusted leaders about what are the mega companies doing and what can we learn from that, and then what are the large companies doing that we can learn from that, and so on. So, I appreciate that, but I would welcome that for sure. I'm looking at our podcast Amazonaires in the back there, and huge shout out to them too. So when we think about kind of the future then between our 3 organizations, is there anything that industry can look forward to that's coming up in the nearest future? If it's an event or if there's more information that, real life tangible stuff. Is there anything that's happening in the near future in our area?
So Josh, I think I think you alluded to this fact that it's a journey, and it's not a one-stop solution or just a one-time effort, right? So we talked about the technology showcase and ride along event in October last year, which was great. Again, I'm a strong believer that technology adoption starts with awareness, and the focus of it was awareness, giving fleets or attendees first-hand experience of how the equipment works, while also introducing them to what we call as the key pillars of adoption of any new technology, right? Like you have associations like AMTA providing neutral opinion about a technology, which is really key when a fleet is evaluating it, while also having the other key pillars of adoption, which include fuel providers like Clean Energy, the OEM partners like the Kenworths, the Peterbilts, and the Freightliners, who have gone ahead and integrated the X15N into their chassis, and then also Cummins, who's the engine manufacturer in that particular one. So staying on that awareness theme, we do hope to continue touch points and organized touch points related to spreading that awareness, and potentially hosting another session focused. The last event was in Edmonton, but this time it's proposed to be in Calgary, and more to come on that. And it is definitely exciting as we start planning towards that next event, and we'll be sure to spread the word and share that information so that people can attend that particular event.
No, that's awesome. And I'm a big believer that those that show up get fed. Love that statement. And not just food.
No pun intended.
Not just the food, but just the knowledge and the relationships and the opportunity to be part of something. So I'm looking forward to when that next thing is live and when more details to come. That I'm hopeful that that is soon, so then AMTA can help circulate that information. So this has been an incredible conversation. But before we end, just like to ask, was there any final thoughts that you would like to share? So Vetaley, I'm looking at you. Is there any final thoughts?
Just thanks again for having us on today. It's an exciting time in our industry, with conversations like this highlight how quickly things are developing. What gives me confidence is knowing that we're no longer talking about future solutions. We're talking about technology, infrastructure, and partnerships that are delivering real-time results today. This is here to stay.
It's awesome. I appreciate that. It's good to have you on as well.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. How about yourself, Ganesh?
Sort of mirroring Vetaley's thoughts. First of all, would like to thank AMTA, you, Josh, you're a beauty. And would like to thank all the viewers who are listening into this podcast as well. Because, my closing comments would be alternate technologies, the purchasing process is going to be different than what the fleets are used to when it comes to a conventional diesel truck purchase. So sort of tying back to a couple of terms we've been using frequently on this podcast. So confidence, and then the confidence comes from the key pillars of adoption that are there, which are the fuel providers, the OEM, and the engine manufacturer, and associations like AMTA. So I would strongly encourage the fleets to engage these key pillars of adoption so that they have all the information needed to make an educated decision when they start embarking on this journey with the natural gas technology. And then lastly, if any further questions or information is needed, I would encourage everyone to reach out to us. We are here to help, and we are here to help everyone get the information needed to make this journey as comfortable as possible.
That's excellent. I really appreciate that. And Cody, bring us home.
Yeah, I think I have to also thank the AMTA. I think we're very fortunate to have a trucking association of your caliber, especially when it comes to innovation, and very grateful for the platform that you provided here to amplify the message. I guess as a final comment, I think the infrastructure is here. It's growing. We have 4 stations in operation today in Calgary, Edmonton, Grand Prairie, Kamloops. We have a Chilliwack site coming online in the next few months. Fort McMurray will be, in the back half of this year as well. And we have a plan for Winnipeg and Regina. Ultimately, we're very focused on delivering infrastructure in the corridors that unlock, like I said, the market segments that make the most sense. And I think beyond the city, the regional line haul, long haul is the sweet spot for natural gas for the long haul, no pun intended. But beyond that, one organization that has been supportive as well that we haven't mentioned is Emission Reduction Alberta. And, they were at the table with us really from the very beginning, and there's funding support available to de-risk and to buy down the incremental cost of a CNG tractor today. So there's a great opportunity, and I think we've talked about it, and I think it's worth pointing out again, is the ecosystem of support that we have in Western Canada, I think is very unique. And we've had pockets and regions in the U.S. where infrastructure's there. We have the ability to build a truck, but it doesn't hit home and it doesn't have the same traction. And it speaks to the partnerships we have. And I think if anywhere, Western Canada has the right building blocks or the pillars to support this, to de-risk this, and to take this journey with the fleet and, ensure a certain degree of success. So, definitely reach out to your OEM. I think we have enough folks now that are educated on this that could speak to this. Reach out to the AMTA, reach out to anybody if you're interested in more information. It's a great opportunity, and, these trucks are working and the results are there. Speak for themselves.
It's excellent. And I really value, as I've shared throughout this conversation, just the leadership that you 3 bring to this conversation and to our industry. And I'm grateful to be part of this conversation. And yeah, I'm glad that it's here, and I'm excited for just the journey ahead as our industry continues to adapt and evolve and ultimately adopt the technology into their fleet. So thank you very much. And Kelsey, back to you.
And I'm back. I would like to thank Ganesh, Vetaley, and Cody for joining us today. And of course, a big thanks to Josh for fielding today's episode. Let's take a look at some AMTA news. We are less than a month away from AMTA's 88th annual conference taking place April 22nd and 23rd at the Grey Eagle Event Center in Calgary. Tickets are selling fast for this major networking opportunity, including a jam-packed program covering industry, enforcement, communication, and the impacts of AI, as well as our awards dinner, trade show, and more. Registration details are available at amtaconference.ca. Please keep in mind our conference trade show is sold out, but if you want to get in on the networking, tickets remain available. Now for some save the dates. Keep those eyes peeled to your AMTA channels as we will very soon be dropping details on our 76th Professional Truck Driving Championship taking place Saturday, May 30th at our Edmonton International Airport location. As well, we've secured dates for our 2026 Safety Summit, so mark your calendars for May 14th in Medicine Hat and September 30th in Whitecourt. Do you have any questions or comments about Steering Change episodes? Please do reach out on our Instagram at AMTA_CA or LinkedIn and Facebook at Alberta Motor Transport Association. Stay safe and see you next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of AMTA's Steering Change podcast. The views expressed by guests of the Steering Change podcast are their own and may not reflect the views of AMTA, its hosts, or sponsors. Did you have a question that you would like answered on an upcoming episode of the Steering Change podcast? We want to hear from you. To submit a question to the Steering Change mailbag, hit up our DMs on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram with the hashtag Steering Change, and your question will be answered either live on the podcast or by one of our SMEs here at AMTA. We ask that you share this episode with those in your network that could benefit from what we discussed today, and make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform so you can be notified when future episodes are released. You can learn more about us and our mission by visiting www.amta.ca. Now get out there and have a safe day.